I have spent most of my waking hours playing Valorant ever since its closed beta officially launched, and while things are still constantly changing and improving every day, I can tell you that there are a lot of things that the game does right. It's not only the major concepts and fundamentals of a tactical shooter that it advances on, but it's also the minor details and little things that you come to really appreciate as you spend more time into the game. One of these things that I like to bring up is Riot's promotion of gun diversity in Valorant, as it's actually quite excellent within the game, especially compared to its older cousin CSGO. The shop provides a wide variety of different guns, and I could easily argue that every single one of them provides a very viable use case scenario, if not at least a decent niche method in order to sneak out a kill or two. The hottest area for contention in this case is the rifles section, as Valorant offers 4 different rifles to choose from, and I actually believe that all 4 of them are viable and should be used consistently, even at the highest tiers of play. My goal today is to show you the differences between all 4 of the rifles within Valorant, how to control and best use each gun, and situations where you might pick one over the other. One major thing to note about the rifles in Valorant is that they all have an alternative fire, or essentially can aim down sights, which is ADS for short. These unlock different spray patterns and offer longer range and somewhat reduce the recoil of the guns as well. One other thing to note is that any recoil from guns in ADS mode will also change the crosshair behavior. If you fire normally, the bullets tend to hit farther away from the crosshair the longer you spray, whereas when you fire with ADS, then the crosshair will follow the spray no matter what. So the first gun we'll be covering today is the BULLDOG, which is the cheapest of the 4 rifles offered in the game. For those of you coming from CSGO, the BULLDOG is a great comparison to something like the FAMAS, which is another budget rifle. For how much it costs, the BULLDOG does its job incredibly well. It costs 2100 credits in the shop to purchase. The BULLDOG has a magazine capacity of 24 bullets and fires 9.15 bullets per second with medium wall penetration. Its damage profile is that from 0 to 50 meters, essentially any reasonable distance in the game. It will do 116 damage to the head, 35 to the body, and 30 to the leg. The BULLDOG's alternative fire features a 1.25 times zoom and switches its fire rate to a 4-round burst. The BULLDOG should be used primarily as a budget option, as it definitely has the least power among all of the rifles in the game. But that doesn't mean that the BULLDOG's power should be downplayed. The gun is actually quite incredible and is also very fun to use. Although the BULLDOG doesn't carry the potential to one-tap opponents in the head, its burst fire feature more than makes up for it. I often find myself using the burst fire to tap opponents, and since the 3 bullets come out so fast, it's almost as if one-tapping the enemy if you get their head with any of these shots. There's also very little recoil when you are burst firing here, as there is a small delay in between shots that you have to wait for, so it can be incredibly reliable in these situations. So here's the gun's normal recoil pattern, and accounting for a little bit of gun inaccuracy, the BULLDOG definitely has the funkiest and hardest spray pattern to reproduce consistently, but it's certainly still manageable. A good general guideline is to try and make an S shape when trying to pull down. Bursting the gun is also going to work well. Tapping is decently effective, but you should do it primarily in ADS due to the higher consistency and burst fire capability that I mentioned before. So now on to when the BULLDOG should be purchased. It's probably clear that the BULLDOG has its downsides when compared to the other guns in the game and should be purchased in a few scenarios. The first one being when you have just won an eco round. This is a great buy when if you just won pistol, as the BULLDOG unlocks the power that you get from accessing the rifle section while not over-investing into a buy. BULLDOG is also good when you are basically too poor to buy anything else. Generally, outside of these scenarios, you would rather opt for either a different cheaper gun or a more expensive gun. The SMGs in the game are also excellent options, albeit with less headshot damage, so if you're strapped for cash, you can spend more on abilities instead and get one of those. If you have more money, you would definitely rather buy one of the other 3 rifles because they unlock the ability to one-tap people in the head more easily, which is crucial when time to kill in this game is so incredibly low. However, if you want a budget gun that offers a decent amount of power, then the BULLDOG is an excellent option. The Guardian is probably my favorite rifle in the game because of what it brings to the table compared to the traditional rifles, and is actually incredibly viable and has proper use case scenarios where it would actually be better than the Phantom or the Vandal, which are the normal assault rifles that people are used to. The Guardian is a semi-automatic rifle that has incredible accuracy at long ranges when used correctly. If any of you are familiar with Apex Legends, the Guardian is similar to the G7 Scout but in its Valorant form and jacked up in power. The Guardian costs 2700 credits to purchase in the shop, which makes it slightly cheaper than both the Vandal and the Phantom. The Guardian's fire rate is 6.5 shots per second at max speed, which is actually very high for a semi-automatic weapon, but in many situations you will want to shoot at less than this. This is because the Guardian is mainly about its insane accuracy, as it's both the longest range and most accurate of all the rifles in the game. It satisfies that little sweet spot between having an assault rifle and using an operator, as the Guardian enables optimal angles at that middle ground range, which I found myself enjoying more than I would have thought. The Guardian does the same amount of damage from any range, which is 65 to the body, 195 to the head, and 49 to the leg with medium wall penetration. Because of its semi-auto nature and high damage and range, you definitely want to be tapping heads with this gun because of how easy it is to do so. It does slightly get damaged by the Phantom and Vandal in certain spray scenarios, but that's not really what the gun is for. If you're an aim god and want to pop heads easily, this gun is for you. In ADS mode, the Guardian offers a 1.5x zoom, which is much higher than the typical 1.25x offered by normal rifles. So here I'm demonstrating just a quick spray with the Guardian, and as you can see here, pretty consistently the first 3 bullets fired at full speed are actually generally pretty accurate with each other, with the 4th bullet going up but not too far off. Any bullet after the 4th will really start to go off position along with reduced accuracy, so from this point I would definitely recommend to just fire in bursts. However, it is also really good that the first 3 bullets are decently accurate because it only takes 3 bullets to kill someone with the Guardian as well. If you enjoy what the Guardian offers and your playstyle is well complemented by the gun, I see absolutely nothing wrong with picking that gun over the others, as the range advantage and flexibility that it offers actually make it quite incredible in many scenarios. The lower price tag that it has also makes it even more attractive of an option in scenarios where you have a limited economy. It might feel less flexible than something like a Phantom or Vandal in closer scenarios, but it's still very capable and should be something you should seriously consider. To many, the Vandal is a very familiar gun. For any CSGO players out there, it is essentially the equivalent of the AK in many ways. It's a one tap to the head, it has a very harsh recoil, and is loud and proud in its playstyle. Many players I've seen have defaulted to this gun, and for good reason. It was good in CSGO, and it is good in this game as well. The Vandal costs 2,900 credits in the shop to purchase, and is your classic, fully automatic, terrorist-style assault rifle. However, both sides can purchase the gun, unlike CSGO. It has a firing rate of 9.25 bullets per second unscoped, which is reduced to 8.32 bullets per second when scoped in at its 1.25x zoom. The Vandal will headshot from any range, dealing 156 damage to the head, 39 to the body, and 33 to the leg from 0 to 50 meters with medium wall penetration. So here is an example of the gun's spray. Notice how it is very punishing if you do a spray any longer than maybe 6 bullets, but most of the time you should be killing the enemy by the time you take this long. Requiring that long of a spray usually means that you're taking on more than one target at once, so you'll require godlike spray control in these scenarios. However, if you're 10 meters or closer to your target, then you won't have as much of a problem with this, as the spray control required will be drastically reduced at this range. There's a harsh learning curve with the spray of this gun and with general bullet inaccuracy, but I'll be putting a picture of the general spray pattern and pull down area for your reference. The Vandal, in my opinion, is the best gun to simply get a lot of practice on, as it has the highest reward for players who decide to invest much time into it and get familiar with its behavior. Its ability to work well in any scenario while also offering one-tap potential at any range make it really good to pick up. The Phantom is to the Vandal as is the M4 is to the AK in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. However, whereas in CSGO, many players would take the AK over the M4 any day, in Valorant the argument becomes very different. The Phantom actually offers many competitive trade-offs to the Vandal and has some nice creature comforts that make it a compelling choice. It's also the same price as the Vandal at 2,900 credits. Compared to the Vandal, the Phantom offers a lower recoil and spray pattern, a higher rate of fire both in and out of ADS mode, a quieter sound, a higher magazine size at 30 compared to the Vandal's 25, and a high capacity to still one-tap opponents. Based on hearing this, you might think that the Phantom is actually quite good of a gun, and I'd have to agree with you. The Phantom is an excellent all-rounded gun that is actually better in certain scenarios than the Vandal, namely in close range. The Phantom can still one-tap enemies within the 0 to 15 meter range, which means that unlike in CSGO, the Phantom is very competitive. Both sides can also buy both the Phantom and the Vandal as well, so it's less of a side-based advantage and more of a personal preference decision. The Phantom, however, does less damage the further away your enemy is, so the lack of consistency in this case may infuriate you at times, but the gun's also other creature comforts make it really forgiving. The gun's damage is too long to explain, so I'll leave an image of it here. The gun also has medium wall penetration. So at anything longer than the 15-meter range, it will take 5 shots instead of 4 to the body in order to kill with it, but with the higher fire rate, I think it kinda compensates for this. The Phantom fires at 11 bullets per second unscoped and 9.9 bullets per second while in ADS mode, and you definitely feel this difference compared to the Vandal. If you want a gun that has a smaller learning curve but is still a very effective all-rounder, the Phantom is also an excellent choice. I do think that the Vandal does have a better skill ceiling though, so if you want a gun you can practice and reward excellent in time investment, I recommend that instead. So here's the spray of the Phantom. The big thing to note here is that it's actually quite similar to the Vandal, but generally has a tighter spread. And then the spread continues to tighten further when you also aim down sights. Overall, based on the information I've provided, you can tell that all of the rifles in the game are actually quite viable and have their own use case scenarios. Before you immediately jump to the gun you were most familiar with in CSGO, I definitely recommend giving all of the guns a try, especially the 3 most expensive ones. They all bring unique playstyles to the table, and along with the other guns in the game, bring an interesting take on the gunplay you may be used to. I hope this quick overview helps you get more insight to the differences between all of these guns and helps you push towards choosing something new.